Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Demystifying Money. I'm your host, Misty Lynch, and today I am joined by Larissa Makuch, and she is the founder of the Abundance Academy and also the author of Stop Procrastinating Your Life Away. So, this is a great time, I think, of year for people to start to think about the future, maybe reflect on what they've done and think about setting some new goals. But that's not always easy for everybody to do. And a lot of times we end up getting to a new year and wondering, like, what happened? What changed? And it feels like we're kind of just, maybe on a hamster wheel. So it has to be something that we're more intentional about. So I thought it'd be great today to talk to Larissa about how she helps people, how she takes a look at, things like your mindset and different barriers that all of us have to overcome when it comes to our own thoughts and our own, capacity to, kind of step into a different version of ourselves. So thank you, Larissa, so much for joining me today.
I'm so happy to be here. This is going to be so much fun. I love your podcast and I love your holistic approach to your life and business. So
Thank you.
This episode of Demystifying Money with Misty Lynch is proudly sponsored by Soundview Financial Advisors. Visit www.soundviewfinancialadvisors.com to learn more.
I'd love to hear more about take us back. Like, how did you end up being the founder of the Abundance Academy? Kind of what did you think you would be doing with your life? And then how did you end up in this position of entrepreneurship? Because I know a lot of us don't, that you might be doing things that you never even dreamed of, when you were in high school or college. So I'd love to hear more about how, what led you to where you are today.
growing up, other than my grandmother renting her basement suite, we did not have entrepreneurial bones in our bodies. And so I always expected to grow up, get a job, have the white picket fence, get a degree, a master's degree, and just go the traditional route. And the one program that I wanted to attend in university got cut the year before I stepped in. And then I felt completely lost. I'm like, the one thing I wanted to study, the one thing I was certain of was gone. And so I started spinning. I got really confused. I started taking a whole lot of different subjects and I ended up graduating on time, but it wasn't in any specific arena that I was particularly passionate about. I wanted to get my degree and be out of there. And so somewhere along that line, I found a financial services company and I started training and getting licensed in this financial services company. And I remember that was my first career. Didn't know if I wanted to stay, but that's really where the idea of entrepreneurship came from. You had to find your own clients, you had to do sales. I didn't really know much about that. I didn't know if it was good or bad. I just followed the rules and I tried to do a good job because that's what Larissa did. But I remember there was a time in around New Year's or Christmas, the branch manager called us in and did a goal setting and dream stretching workshop. And what was really cool is we looked at the goals and dreams that we wanted for different areas of our lives. And I never actually thought of it. I just expected to follow rules. I didn't know I could actually start thinking for myself. And over time, I started getting introduced to different people and different concepts at conferences. So we naturally progressed to real estate projects. I had a pole dance home party business that God dropped in my lap. And it was a very organic flow of one very random thing to another that ultimately led to Abundance Academy. And I think the common thread really was personal growth and development the whole time, regardless of what random different thing I was doing. I always studied for me. I kept hiring coaches, life, business, financial, spiritual, all kinds of coaches. If I felt called in that direction, I would hire them for me. And when the opportunity came to step out of my previous position, I was like, this is inconvenient timing. I just had a baby. And my husband stood up and said, Larissa, if you keep doing what you're currently doing, are you going to get to where you need to be? And so that's when I took the leap. I left my first secure job I'd ever had in my life, and which I grew comfortably uncomfortable with, and took the leap to start a business with no plan, ready, fire, aim. And that over time turned into Abundance Academy.
It's interesting because I think a lot of us don't have a linear career path and it can seem random to other people, but to us it makes sense. And I think that's the most important thing because I don't think it's necessarily the same as it could have been in the past where you're on a track, you do this, and it's just clearly laid out for you. For most people, there's either things that happen in their lives or in their jobs, or there's layoffs or changes or moves, and all of these things happen where it's not exactly what we thought it would be. But I think you mentioned that you focused on that personal development piece. Like you focused, it made sense to you because that was always kind of part of what you were doing, no matter what the actual work was. So I think that's important for people to think about as they're, kind of evaluating if, like you mentioned, that discomfort in a comfortable job because a lot of people listening might be there. They might know what that means. And some people might be like, what does that even mean? But I think for a lot of us, including myself, we're like, why can't we just be happy? But
Mhm.
there was still something that was missing. And so I think that that's important if you feel those things to start to maybe examine those. So when you're working with clients, tell me kind of what happens. When does somebody seek you out and kind of what does that process look like if you're helping people who come to you in the Abundance Academy?
Yeah, beautiful. I find we bump into a lot of different people, and ultimately people come to us because they're searching for something. They're searching, they have beautiful lives, they have really good things going on, they're successful in their careers. Everyone sees them as like top of their game. However, there's something missing. They might feel that lack of satisfaction. They might feel like they're living a comfortably uncomfortable life and coasting. They might have a dream they've brushed aside because they're taking care of their family, they're taking care of everyone else. Maybe aging parents is another big deal that
Mm-hmm.
a lot of times you don't think about until it happens. And when you can start really truly realizing that you don't have to get stuck in circumstance, you can be responsible, you can take care of those you love, you can take care of your business, and you can feel satisfied at the end of the day. That's ultimately what we're after, and that's what we help women do
Mm-hmm.
is lay their head on their pillow at night and be like, I feel really good about myself. I feel really good about my accomplishments. I feel aligned, I feel congruent, and it's not just this esoteric woo woo, I'm
Mm-hmm.
high vibing all day long. It's really from this place of rooted authenticity. So they literally have their lives and businesses working in conjunction with one another. I think so often when you're in business, you're like, this is my business has.
Mm-hmm.
I need work-life balance. I can only work here. I
Mm-hmm.
can only have family here. But if you're in a vocation that you actually do love, you need to keep your eye on both
Mm-hmm.
arenas, or you're going to have a mismatch. You're going to feel incomplete in both.
Yeah, I think that a lot of people that I talk to feel that way, where they're in one place and they feel like they should be somewhere else. And then when they're home, they're thinking about where they're in. I think that's really difficult for people. And I think you mentioned, working with women. I think a lot of women feel that way more so, maybe the pressure to kind of be everything in both arenas at all times, which is really, really quite impossible to do. But having that blended idea of maybe not a perfect balance, but something where you feel really good or you feel like it's enough, in some of those areas. I think that is such an important thing. And it can be really hard for people, especially if they're looking at external ideas of what things should be like. So I think that that's very helpful. And you mentioned caring for children, aging parents, all of those things they're a big stress emotionally and work-wise and also financially. And I think that's something that a lot of people struggle with that maybe they didn't see coming. And so we're starting to see that more now. So that's great that you help people who are facing these things, these big challenges that really might be uncharted territory for a lot of us. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about your thoughts when it comes to, when it comes to mindset, and maybe there are some people who are at that comfortable discomfort but they're doing well financially. Or
Yeah.
maybe they're kind of afraid to take a leap into entrepreneurship or something different or follow that passion because of money, I think, or I've heard people say because of health insurance, all of these things that kind of pop into your head. So when I know you took the leap, I think a lot of, I did, but it weighed on me quite a bit. So what are your thoughts there when you talk to somebody who maybe is afraid to chase a dream and has some real serious financial concerns.
Yeah, and I think it's good that they have those financial concerns. I took the leap before thinking it through. I'm grateful I did.
Yeah.
However, I'm also the kind of person that can stomach a lot of discomfort. I'm willing to work through a lot of discomfort and challenges and and keep going. I think a lot of people that's not something they're willing to do.
Mhm.
And if you have certain needs, like the need for financial security, tossing your job in pursuit of a dream is probably not going to lead you to a viable and successful dream. And sometimes we get this idea and we get fixated on the one path that we need to take. And it's kind of like you were saying, we don't just have one linear career path. Well,
Mhm.
there's not just one way you can pursue your dream.
Yeah.
Sometimes when you start dancing with your dreams and you start spending time with your dreams, you find new ways to attract them to you. You find new ways to pursue them. Maybe you could start something on the side while you do that. For some people, it's better to stay in their job and
Mhm.
do their dream as a hobby. And for others,
Yes.
they might just need to like work, save, and then make the 360 shift, like just completely make the shift. However, you don't know what that's going to be, but when you give yourself time and space to tune into what's right for you, I think you're going to find your answers. There is no one size fits all. And I think that's one thing we really do our best to teach people is to tune into themselves because
Mhm.
you actually have the answers you're looking for. They say that prayer is when you talk to God saying, please God, help
Mhm.
me. You're begging for something, whether it's God, the universe,
Mhm.
spirit, but intuition is when God talks to you. And to tune into your intuition, which isn't just, again, this esoteric concept.
Mhm.
It's the little voice inside your head that's whispering and sometimes knocking really loudly and sometimes slapping you in the face. Sometimes intuition comes in many different forms. Sometimes it's through things you see on a regular basis. Sometimes it's through that gut feeling that just doesn't go away or that inner knowing. But when you take the time to hit the pause button and actually ask yourself the question, you'll have the answers you're looking for to choose the right path for you at that time. It might change later, but what do I need now?
I think
What do
that's important. You mentioned so many different things there, but I do think that, when you said that sometimes it's our intuition, and I think that's where coaching and other people can help us because a lot of times, like, we are waiting for a sign, we're waiting for something, and like we might be ignoring all of the signs. They might be like right in front of us. We're looking back, you'd say, "Oh yeah, I should have done this a while ago." It could be their health is becoming an issue. All of these things that do happen with people, and I think it's really important to pay attention to that. But sometimes, really, you're not asking yourself these questions. You're not looking at it, or you feel like I don't have time for, to manifest anything or to sit in prayer. And it doesn't always have to necessarily be that way that people picture a person meditating in the morning and trying to like listen to their inner self. I think there's a lot of things that we do know. We already have answers for. We just have gotten really lousy maybe at paying attention to them. So,
these
yeah.
haven't really helped, have they?
No.
Like they distract us left, right, and center. And the point of paying attention or listening to intuition is
Mhm.
just turning this on airplane mode or getting it out of the room and just listening to your own voice. And one of the things that you were talking about is sometimes we don't see the results right away. Well, and my initial thought went to, well, it's kind of like compound interest
Mhm.
or paying off a mortgage. You
Yeah.
don't see results right away. You're like, I'm doing the work, I'm doing the work,
Mhm.
I'm doing the work, and nothing's happening. I'm doing the work, I'm doing the work. Well, a little bit, but damn, I've done so much work. I'm doing the work, I'm doing the work. And most people give up over here.
Yeah.
Some people suck it up to get to here, but most people quit like 3 feet from gold when things finally start to work.
Mhm.
And the timeline for this process
Mhm.
might be very short in comparison. It might take a little longer. It might be a week, might be a month, might be a year, might be 10 years, might be 30 years. It doesn't matter what the timeline is. If you know in your heart and soul you've got to do something, keep moving forward. I think that's the basic premise of my book. Keep moving forward. There's a quote that says, procrastination is suicide of your dreams on the installment plan. Little by little, they disappear. And so if you're moving in the direction of your dreams, it's not even about getting your dream, it's about how you show up in the world. If you're saving money, if you're growing money, if you're paying attention to your money, it's not just about having the money, it's about having good relationships with money. And I
Mm-hmm.
think sometimes people forget the importance of it. They're after this big shiny star. They
Yeah.
forget that the process is really important, and you're going to have so many magic moments and so much more confidence that you build as you focus on the journey along the way.
Yeah. No, and a lot of people do. They kind of they feel like they're working so hard and I have nothing to show for it, or I don't know where everything is. I hear that so often. And then we'll look and we'll see like, okay, but you're also putting this much away behind the scenes here and you're paying off this. And so it's like it could feel like I'm doing all of this for nothing or I have nothing to show for it. And a lot of times that's not true. It's just we're looking at certain things like maybe the checking account balance only and nothing else that's happening. And a lot of these things, they do take effort and work and time. But it is, it is important. And that's one of the things that I like showing people. It's like if you keep doing this, when we look further out 10 years, 20 years, this is the impact it has, which is so hard to see. It's so hard to see, but it's like that with everything. Everybody who's had a goal to improve their fitness or anything like that, it doesn't. It's not always as quick, and that's why a lot of us just, abort the mission and decide like this isn't. It's just too hard. But I think that could be it could be so valuable to just kind of learn to incrementally move forward even if
Yeah.
it's not a quantum leap from here to your goal and it takes time and effort, it's usually worthwhile and it's in the right direction. So we do lose sight of that though, a little too easily.
Mhm. I love how you mentioned quantum leap because we're looking for these quantum leaps. And I was in a mastermind session with Brian Proctor, who
Hmm.
was Bob Proctor's son. He was Bob Proctor's huge in the world of
Hmm.
manifestation and
Hmm.
law of attraction. And he was telling us a story about him being at dinner with Price Pritchett, the author of U Squared, that talks about quantum leaps.
Hmm.
And Price said, if people would just do simple things and just adopt like one really good habit, that would lead them to quantum leaps. And
Mm.
so often they're trying to do so many things and they're scattering their energy all over the place. But if they were strategic and chose like one really good habit and stuck with it, that would position them for the quantum leap they're looking
Hmm.
for. And it's the simple things that most people think are illogical or silly, or it's like, well, I don't have time for that today.
Hmm.
What if you made that time? What if you made that one thing a priority? What if you made generating business a
Hmm.
priority in your business every day? That would make a massive difference. Most entrepreneurs don't think, how am I like I mean, restaurants and coffee shops are open for business every day. A lot of entrepreneurs that work at home, they don't think of themselves as like, I'm open for business every
Hmm.
day. How am I greeting people? How am I attracting that? And it's so easy to hide when you're in a service-based business
Hmm.
to not go generate business and do business every day. It's easy to get caught up in projects and paperwork and non-money making activities. But what if you did that one little thing
Hmm.
and you actually earned money every day? Like, boom, quantum leap
Yeah.
for 90% of business owners out there.
Yeah, and it's hard to you like you said, you don't see yourself as open for business as somebody who's like going into a shop and turning the sign on and like but we are. And so I think that's when some people get frustrated like why aren't people finding me? If people just knew what I did and it's like how are we making sure that they notice you? How what are you working on? And so I think that and also sometimes we can get overwhelmed with different ways to attract business where it could be like a laser pointer with a cat trying to chase the next thing without that consistent effort of just showing up every week, every day. And so it can be a struggle for business owners to really figure out like how they want to how they want to show up and how they want to, like you said, greet those new people who haven't learned about them yet or maybe don't know them yet. That could be their next best client. but it's hard sometimes to figure out what that technique or that skill should be. So, do you when you talk to people and you work with your clients, about kind of, and you've mentioned like the law of attraction and things like that, how much does mindset get in the way of somebody who maybe has a great product or a great service, but there's things that are kind of holding them back from actually being seen?
I think it's everything. Like 95 to 98% of the results. And even when you look at where results come from, like consciously, we're trained to use our conscious mind in school.
Hmm.
We're trained to think and be logical and ask certain types of questions, but it's only responsible for 5% of our results. Your heart, your unconscious realm, everything out of your conscious awareness is actually responsible for 95 to 98% of your results. And when you have a great product consciously, but you don't buy into it, people feel it. You
Hmm.
might be saying all the right words and you might have genius marketing and you might be doing the things and going through the motions, but you know what? No one's going to buy. Or you're going to get high turnover or something's going to go wrong. Why? Because you don't align with it in your heart.
Hmm.
And and it's really a matter of you believing in yourself, you believing in your product, you believing in the difference that you and your products and services
Hmm.
make to the world. And if you don't believe that, you could have the crappiest marketing that you could have faulty almost everything
Hmm.
else. If you believe in those things, you will rise to a higher level of success than the person with the perfect product, but that doesn't believe it and doesn't buy in. Why? Because that person's going to go numb themselves out on Netflix,
Hmm.
or they're going to find a reason, they're going to find an excuse not to show up the next day.
Yeah.
Life is going to get in the way and it's going to look really legitimate.
Hmm. Oh, sure. No, and I think we can definitely find ways to justify a lot of our behaviors. And even if it is procrastination or if it is just kind of staying small and not wanting to be seen. I've seen that so many times. I've talked to people who are like, well, I can't do that. Or I can't do what you do because I can never be on video. I can't do what you do. I could never look at like, and I'm like, do you think I like it? I don't like it. I just have to do it. I just do it. And like, I pretend that I have a boss who expects things to be done, even though the boss now is me. If I had somebody else telling me, you need to do this and kind of, I would do it. So it's just kind of, there's always an excuse though, and there's a good reason, and it seems really good
Well,
in our heads.
you can have reasons or you can have results, but you
Hmm.
can't have both. And I love how you pretend that you've got your own boss. Because
Hmm.
I mean, would you hire you and keep you around based on your production?
Right.
If you are the business owner, like would you hire someone like you in your business?
Hmm.
And would you want to pay them? What kind of performance review would you give to them?
Hmm. Yeah, no, and my husband's doing performance reviews right now at his company, and it's very straightforward. This many people have to get this many people have to get this many people, and that is just like the world that a lot of us leave. And, we don't think about it again, where it is like, yeah, am I showing up? Am I getting the work done? Am I productive? Are the results there? Am I like, how is everything feeling? And I think sometimes we don't look at that. We're just kind of like, well, something will click eventually. I don't know. Maybe, it is, or it's going to take some external force to get us the results that we want, which I think can be really a lot easier to think about than kind of looking internally at those
Yeah.
things.
Well, it's like upside down, like spirit, God, divine, some kind of voice is going to channel into you and give you the answers you're looking for, but
Yeah.
you've got to express it.
Mm.
If you keep it inside your head and don't do anything with it, it's kind of a waste.
Yeah.
And you've got to work from the inside out, like going within to find those answers. Sure, you can talk to people and get ideas and get new perspectives, but ultimately, when you are responsible for your own decision and you own it, there's a sense of pride that comes along with that. And right before we went live here, we were talking about this idea of, well, are you gonna play small this year? Are you gonna go for that 5 or 10% growth, or are you gonna actually do what your heart is calling for? Are you
Mm.
gonna are you gonna take a chance to grow 20 or 50%? And maybe you'll fail at that, but you'll still get 2 or 3 times further ahead than you
Mhm.
would if you aimed small. Are you going to write that book? Are you going to show your face on camera even though you might want to throw up? Go ahead, throw up, pop a mint
Yeah.
and show up, because if your dream is worth it, you'll be willing to do it. And I commend you. It's like you don't love being on camera. Great. You're willing to do it because you love some other benefits of what you do. Like, what a great example you're setting for you have a daughter, right?
Mhm.
Like, great example you're setting for her.
Yeah.
Mommy doesn't always like doing things, but sometimes we have to do things we don't want to do, and we can even have fun with them.
Yeah. No, and I think about a lot of the stuff that we talked about, and sometimes, if you're a parent or if you work with children or if you're ever with like there's a lot of times where we tell like I coach my daughter's basketball. They're 10 years old. But it's like, yeah, if you practice this shot like 15 minutes a day, you're going to crush it. You're going to be amazing. Like, because a lot of people, like, if it's just putting in the work or if it's just doing something, like, it might take a while to see results. And then you might see that you are doing much better in these games or you feel more confident taking a shot and all that. And it's funny because it's a lot of the stuff that, like, really can be related to other people's lives, clients, business, all of those things. The doing the reps getting, and then you just kind of eventually showing up on camera or anything like that, if that's something you're thinking about doing in your business, eventually you don't really think about it anymore as far as like, what do I look? It's just like, what message can I get out there to people that might be important for them to hear today?
Mhm.
That's all.
Absolutely.
And so I think that's something that a lot of us think about doing, or we see other people doing it. And sometimes seeing other people do it is kind of helpful because it's like, okay, I'd like to do that. Like, how did they get to where they're at? And usually there's a way to back into it because none of us are really naturals at just about anything. But I think sometimes it is good to kind of, yeah, set those goals maybe by seeing like, okay, what, like 20, doing something that's like a little bit easier or really close to where we're at might feel achievable and fine, like a decent goal. But like when you're talking about like thinking way bigger, that can be so terrifying for some people. And I think that that's something that a lot of us need help with because they could say, what do you want to do if you had this? And people just say that, I don't know. I
Mhm.
don't know. So when you get people who are like, I don't know what I want that to look like, how do you help them figure that part out so they can start to adjust to something that's a little bit bigger than where they're at?
Yeah, and I think even those that do know, I think there's most people don't. Most
Mm,
people don't know. And something as simple as getting a fresh sheet of paper every day and writing, what do I want? And there's some other words that might resonate better with you. So, what do I love?
mm,
What do I desire?
mm.
Ask yourself those questions each and every day. And don't just do it once. I think we're looking for the answer to come. And if you haven't done it before, you're probably going to come up blank, or you might come up with some surface level thing that I want to like retire on a beach and
Mhm,
do nothing and work from anywhere in the world. Like,
mhm.
no, I don't want to take a laptop to the beach. You get sand in it. It's not my idea of a good time. Your eyes burn when you work from the beach. I tried it.
Yeah, you can't see
Not
the
my
screen.
idea of a good time. I like reading books on the beach
Yeah.
under a shade canopy, but like I don't want to work from the beach.
Hmm.
So even simple things, there's contradictions. So start really thinking about what do you want? And it's like the most simple seeming exercise, but do it for 2 weeks, do it for 2 months every single day. And you're going to start uncovering your true heart's desires. You're going to start seeing common threads. You're going to start peeling back the layers and giving yourself permission to write things that you forgot about, or things that give you goosebumps,
Mm.
things that you might want to throw up at the thought of thinking about, but secretly you want it. You just have been afraid to admit it to yourself.
Yeah.
And you're going to notice certain things. You don't have to even take action on any of those things at the beginning. But just start asking yourself the question. The biggest thing is ask yourself the question, what do I want? What do I love? What does my heart desire? And keep going and keep going. And then every week, every 2 weeks, look back on it and see what comes up. Decide, do I want to take action on any
Mhm.
of it? Yes, no, maybe. But I think take down the pressure to be like, oh my gosh, it's the new year. I've got to have my goals. I've got to have every like
Yeah.
I'm getting really worked up. But yeah, like you want everything set. However, if
Mhm.
it's not right, give it more time.
Yeah.
Plan the things you do. And when it's the right time, you're going to know. And you're going to have so much more confidence in that thing that you feel compelled to follow, and it's going to work. Why? Because you actually care about it, because you're actually invested, because it came from the right place, because you spent time entertaining it. Maybe you spent time daydreaming about it for a few weeks. You're like, maybe I'm like, I thought about this. Okay. So I thought about a car.
Mm-hmm.
Thought I wanted an Aston Martin. I was like very excited about
Mm-hmm.
this idea of an Aston Martin. I dreamt about it. I looked up the tutorials online and very sexy videos about fancy cars.
Mm-hmm.
So one day I'm like, I've been dreaming about this. I might as well go check it out. Like, let me go to the
Yeah.
dealership and check it out. So I booked a time. Walking in, I felt funny. I'm like, okay, well, maybe I just don't belong. But then as I went up there, I was like, no, it's not that I don't belong. I don't like the feeling here. I don't like these cars.
Mm-hmm.
I saw the one old school model that I
Mm-hmm.
loved.
Yeah.
I could have this. Like it's like from the 1940s or 50s or
Yeah.
something. And I'm like, probably not my car.
Mm-hmm.
But every new model, I was just like, don't like that, don't like that, don't like this is not my car.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought I wanted it. I danced with the dream, but then when I actually went to test it out, I was like, no, it's not my dream. And so I still have a dream of a fancy car, but I'm like, I'm not pushing it until I totally align and I totally
Yeah.
click with it.
No, and
And
I think that you did a good thing though by taking action and actually going and looking at it because a lot of times we will ruminate on like, oh, this would be so nice, but it's never going to happen for me and people become like where actually a lot of times, especially financially, like if you have a goal, we can plug it into the plan, figure out maybe it's going to take a little longer to get there, maybe more money, more effort, or more work, a longer time, whatever. But most of the things we could figure out a way to do. It's just backing into it. But a lot of times it's just nicer to think of it up here rather than actually like going and seeing like, is this is this right for me? And you're right, sometimes it's not, and sometimes it's a different goal. Some people try entrepreneurship and they don't like it and they feel like a total failure. And it's like, so what? Let's go back to let's do something else, like where it's not necessarily like a reflection on anything, but it's like, yeah, the car wasn't the right one. Okay. Now
next,
you
yeah,
can stop dreaming about it and like move on to other things. I think that it's nice, but I think sometimes, yeah, just that taking that extra step to kind of step into it. Like, and maybe you went there and you loved it and it was absolutely, the everything just came together perfectly and that was it. Decisions get made quicker. But I love that you actually just were a little off.
yeah. I actually had a client and we live in Toronto. And so she'd
Hmm.
never had a car. She got her driver's license in her mid 20s.
Hmm.
And everything was really convenient. She worked very close to where she lived. And so one day she and I were talking and she's like, I've decided I want a car. Everyone tells me I don't need a car, but
Hmm.
she's like, I am tired of asking for rides to go to the cottage. Like, why am I doing? I'm a grown woman. Like, why can't I have a car? And so she thought of a car she wanted and she went and checked it out. But then she realized, no, the new model wasn't the one she wanted actually like the previous model.
Hmm.
And so again, she checked it out and she thought it would take her a few months to like save for the car and prepare. She had it within 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Like, but she hooked into the idea, she made the decision, and so often, I think this is really important, especially for financial decisions. You've got to make a decision and back it by action. She decided she was going to have the car and she started searching. She booked the appointment, she took action, and she kept taking action. And
Hmm.
the several month time frame turned into 2 weeks and she was like going to the cottage on her own. It's such a simple seeming thing. I'm from
Hmm.
Saskatchewan. You just expect to get a car at 16.
Yeah, you have to have a car.
Just
Yeah.
do. You just do.
Hmm.
In a big city, I
Yeah.
didn't realize that it's very different. I live in Toronto now
Yeah.
and different mentality. The youth are not rushing out to buy cars. They take Ubers and
Right. No, I
different.
mean, but yeah, I grew up in Connecticut in New England, and like there was no public transportation. Everybody has a car. And so like even being a person who like I still feel like I have to, but that's not necessarily true anymore. When I was living in Boston, I didn't need it. It just sat there. But I think and it is funny how we kind of set these timelines in our head about how long it's going to take. And sometimes we're not right. Like sometimes it goes faster once you decide and you do start taking action, then you actually can sometimes it can happen really quickly. Or I've had clients that have been like, well, we're thinking of having a child and we might try. And I'm just like, the next time I talk to them a few weeks later, things have changed. It's just wild that we always kind of put this imaginary timeline because that's how our brain like feels like it can process things. And sometimes things happen much quicker, but I do think it always has to have some action. Always. Or else, it really doesn't get put on put on the path for you anyway.
Wow.
So I'd love to hear a little bit more. You mentioned not setting like big, crazy New Year's like resolutions or goals and sometimes coming at it in a different way. But say that there's somebody who is looking to maybe they're looking like to have a breakthrough, or maybe they're looking to figure out what that thing is and they figured it's time, but they're really kind of struggling. So what are some things that people could do? Maybe if they're looking to, you mentioned writing down some of the things that you want and that you desire. Um, some of those things might be things that you already have though, right? Like, is that possible or is it always something new?
Yeah, there's one workshop that I've run many times, the vision expansion workshop,
Hmm.
and one of the things we identify your dream life at different points in time,
Hmm.
and really a comprehensive view. And what most people realize is 80 to 90% of it, you can have your dream life now. You either have the most important things to you,
Hmm.
or you can fairly easily get them if
Yeah.
you actually put a little time and elbow grease in. If you don't have it, it's probably because you just didn't think of having it. And sure, a few things might be not accessible, but most of your dream life you already have
Hmm.
or could access quickly. And I think a lot of times we don't recognize that, and we're chasing this pipe dream, and we feel bad that we don't have it because we're focusing on everything we don't have instead of focusing on the blessings we do have, or the blessings that are accessible to us. And I think when it comes to New Year's goals or resolutions, I think we should all have a big juicy goal. I call it like a juicy goal because
Hmm.
when it's juicy, like you salivate, you want it, you're excited by it, but it's got to be aligned.
Yeah.
You should be working towards something that's bigger than what you're doing, something that stretches you, something that causes you to grow, something that does make you want to throw up when making certain financial decisions
Yeah.
because you've never had the guts to do them before. Why? Because it creates courage for you.
Hmm.
It makes you feel alive. And it's not even about getting the goal, it's about being able to step into a higher version of yourself. It's expanding your skill set, it's expanding your mindset, it's expanding your world. And it's what's going to help you be more of who you really are.
Hmm.
They say money is a magnifier. It doesn't, if you have more money, you're going to just express more of who you are. So instead of just
Hmm.
chasing more money, chase to be a better version of yourself. And so
Hmm.
when the money happens and when the money comes, you're just going to keep expanding what you are and who you are.
Yeah.
I think it's a teeny tiny distinction, but yes, set big goals, set things, but make sure they're aligned. If not, they're not going to work, and then you're just going to feel bad.
Hmm. No, and some
So,
people that say like, oh, the next promotion, I guess that's my goal because maybe it should be, but that's not necessarily what it really is. So I think that's so important. And I love the thought of having that big goal that's like kind of feels crazy, feels impossible, and then, making some progress along the way. I think that that's something that all of us should always have. And then if you feel like you're accomplishing a lot of things, like to be, a lot of people, you don't want to just say like, well, you should feel grateful, you should feel, but it is kind of that gratitude piece does come into it because a lot of times you're right, we're not too far off. And some of my clients are super happy and they don't know what to put on there for a financial goal because they've accomplished so many things that they've really wanted. They have all these things. And so there's always more we can think about. But it's also great to love what you have and like maybe still want something else or still want something different, without feeling bad that you're not like happy enough when you should be. So it's an interesting thing to think about. And so I hope that everybody, does spend some time thinking about these things, writing anything out, actually. You don't even have to tell anybody what these goals are. Like no one needs to no one needs to hear, no one needs to, you don't have to worry about anybody laughing at you or anything like that. Like these can be super personal. But I think it is kind of a way to expand what we're thinking about, which is really exciting. So tell me more about how you work with people, and if someone's listening and thinking that they want to do all these things, um, they want the breakthrough, they want a strategy, they want to figure it out, um, but they're not, they're just curious about like how they could learn more and like what it looks like. So tell me how people can find you, and really who listening would be kind of a perfect example of someone who could benefit from your work.
yeah, so we work with women, high achieving women who have beautiful lives. You do have a level of success, you do have a level of satisfaction, but you're looking for more. Something is not working in your life. Maybe your peak in your career, but your personal relationships are really suffering. Maybe you've got great family dynamics and you have a lot of fun, but you avoid work because there's some kind of pain in that, right? Like there's something that's not working for you, or perhaps you're in a job and you're feeling trapped and you aren't having that level of satisfaction that you'd like. You feel like other people keep moving further ahead and they have these beautiful Instagram lives and you're wondering what's wrong. So we work with women in two capacities. So, first, one on one to help them overcome deep rooted limiting beliefs. And I think we all have them.
Mhm.
And we go through a specific breakthrough process to uncover the deepest limiting beliefs that they have that are holding them back. If we say, if you can name your problem, that ain't it. There's always something underneath it. There's something underneath it. There's something underneath it. And I know when I have problems, I try to self diagnose because I'm so smart with things and I'm always wrong.
Yeah.
So you really do need someone else to like
Mhm.
call you on your stuff. And so we look at what the problems are. We look at how they're really running and showing up in your life. And it's almost like you have this we create an architectural blueprint of your problem, and then we break that blueprint so we could rebuild it in a more effective manner.
Mhm.
So unconsciously we set you up for success
Yeah.
and for the life you desire. So that's if you've got like real deep, heavy stuff, we'll
Mhm.
work one on one. For most people, we find that they don't necessarily need that process at the beginning. And so we have a life and business incubator. So in a group setting, we help women keep their eye on their life, keep their eye on their business, and really bridge the gap between both. Because the fact is, some days and some months you're going to swing towards business, you're going to swing towards life, but if you're not keeping your eye on both balls, you're going to start struggling and sacrificing one for the other. And so we want women to have the tools, to have the clarity, the confidence, and conviction behind what they want in all aspects of life. So it's not just like business coaching, like it's not just life coaching. We want you to thrive. We want you to excel and set big, juicy goals and go for them with grace.
Mhm. I think that's I it's funny that you mentioned like because I self-diagnosed too, where I'm like, oh, I know all my blind spots, and like I clearly don't because I are blind spots, but like the limiting beliefs that go, I dealt with that. But I think that we all have these things, no matter where we came from. I feel like I see that when I've talked to hundreds of different people, and like there's always something that will be a thought that comes out just like it's a fact, like it's just telling me the weather, and I'm like, oh, why do you think that, and it's we don't even notice it. So I think that's so great that you actually do the work to kind of really get to the root of some of these things that maybe have been holding us back for most of our lives. And then having that, that group session or that section of people that can kind of come together and learn. I think it's super helpful. How can people find you if they want to follow you or learn more?
Yeah, so I'm on LinkedIn, and I think if anyone's interested in getting a copy of the Stop
Mhm.
Procrastinating book, that'll also connect you to us. So one of the things I offer is the entire book, and we have tons of bonus resources. There's a chapter in there on vision, purpose, and goals, and you'll be walked through step by step how to really create these for the new year and beyond. So you can access that at stopprocrastinatingbook.com. And that's probably the easiest way to find me. So
Awesome. I think it's such an interesting topic. I feel like it's one that it, we can't think about it or like learn about it enough, to just kind of be in control of our own mind, or really to have some confidence in ourselves, because a lot of us are looking for that next coach or that next product or something that's going to solve everything for us. And I feel like it's really so many of the answers are kind of they're in us. They're inside of us, and it's really just kind of figuring them out, which is where sometimes we need a little help. So definitely head over, check out a copy of that book. I'll include everything in the show notes. And thank you, Larissa, so much for joining me today. It was such a pleasure speaking with you. And as you're listening, if you're thinking about what that big juicy goal could be or what you want to do, I think that it's such it's kind of a fun time of year to do it. I mean, we can think about these all year long, but I think that for a lot of us, it's a fresh start. I know it's going to get cold. And we're going to be home quite a bit in New England. It's going to be with the weather. I think it's fun to to kind of think about the year ahead and do our business planning. So, if you are thinking about taking control of your finances in the new year, please head over to mistylynch.com. I'd love to talk with you about things that you could do to kind of get those goals going, put those things into action, and kind of put some money and some fuel behind it. So, or you could head over to the website and check out different episodes of the podcast or a copy of my book, Demystifying Money, if the mindset has been an issue for you. So thank you so much, everyone, for listening, and we'll talk again next week. Don't forget to share with friends and family, and together, let's demystify the world of money. Knowledge is the key to financial empowerment.